Welcome back to Steve's Project Car Garage. My name is Steve. Sitting beside me here is, well, most of a transmission. And we're going to go ahead and dive in and pick up where we left off in the last video. I'm going to show you some of the fun stuff I've discovered and try to figure out what we're going to do with it. So stick around. It'll be a good video. Alright, so some of you guys had already known what had happened. Just based on your reactions, you've had this happen before. But in the last video, you saw where I left off, and I said, well, that's a problem. Well, there it is. You see that? There's a good number of ball bearings that are missing in here. A whole bunch of them just decided to up and leave. Pretty crazy. I don't know what to say about that. Although, I can tell you that, looking at this, I can tell that this gear, or this bearing, was not pressed all the way in. Whether or not that happened after the fact, I'm not sure. But that's not good. That is not a good thing. Another thing that happened that's not good is I discovered that there is a big old chunk of one of the lay gears here that's missing. Right there, actually. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Right there. Big old chunk of that lay gear missing. So, obviously, we need to go ahead and take this apart, find out what the extent of the damage is, and kind of make an assessment. One other thing that I found while taking this apart was over here. So this lobe has broken at one point or another and has been pretty poorly put back together. So that makes me start to really question whether or not I should even continue with this gearbox, if it's worth it, or if I should take the output shaft from this guy, which is right here, fingers crossed it's still good, put it in this guy, and instead of just swapping the bell housing off of it, maybe I should put the adapter plate on here and make this into my overdrive transmission. Gonna have to do a lot of question asking and see what kind of information I can find from y'all, because that might be my only course of action. Because I don't know how much I trust having that poorly welded lobe on there. I mean, it's obviously been on there for a while, so maybe it's fine. But that's just, you know, one of a few things that makes me go, I really kind of wonder if I should go through all this effort or if I should just find a way to adapt the overdrive to the other transmission. I don't know what the gear ratios are either. I got to look into that. And I got to see if that's even something that you can do. If you can take this output shaft and put it on the other one. That would be ideal. And then really, because I know that transmission over there is good. I had the top cracked open on it before, and I've driven with it, and it was fine. And it does have, it hasn't had a rebuild, at least under my watch, but it seems pretty solid. This, on the other hand, is very questionable. So let's go ahead and see what we can take apart further, dive in a little bit deeper, see what else is going on, and let's make an assessment. All right, so to start, I'm going to take the housing off, the extension off of the gearbox here. I've already undone the bolts, and as I started to take things apart, I just found so much of this gasket maker. It just makes me sick. It's so bad. Like, if there's a reason why a transmission would fail, having so much of this goop in your transmission has definitely got to be at the top of that list. Look at that. It's bad. So, all right, well, we got that off. All right, so to actually remove the lay gear, I need a lay gear rod that's similar in length. I don't have one at the moment, so I'm gonna have to probably go to the hardware store and figure something out. I'm gonna see if I can just remove the reverse gear and see how far I can get. So I undid this bolt here, which should be the retaining bolt for the reverse. I'm gonna see if I can maybe just try to push this out. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to.
11 minutes later.
All right, so here's the situation. I can't find this bolt that's supposed to be on the side of this casing to go ahead and loosen up and remove the lay shaft. So I got this here for the reverse gear. That I'm familiar with. I got the drain plug, reverse gear selector. And over here, there's nothing. And I looked at my other transmission. My other transmission has a bolt that's like right here for the lay shaft. And this guy does not have one. So that's really interesting. So I'm going to see what I can try to do to remove the top up here, because I know that this, obviously this bearing is shot. So I'm going to go ahead and just lightly drift this out to see if I can get the main shaft out and see if that gives me a little more visibility to what's going on.
The next day.
All right, so it is now the next day and it's time for some transparency. Last night I tried to get this bearing to come out and I failed miserably. And I'm starting to wonder if it's because that lay shaft is in here. So this morning I went out and I bought a wooden dowel. This is a 5/8 inch wooden dowel. And I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can try to remove that lay shaft. All right, so I got this 5/8 inch dowel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just use this to push out that lay shaft. And actually that's going quite easily. So this is actually going to work out well, I think. Nice, okay. So I cut the dowel just to length so that way it would allow it to sit inside of the casing. And that seems to have been a huge help. So now that the lay shaft is sat down inside of here, oh hey, there's metal bits coming out. That's not good. The lay shaft is now down, the lay gear rather is down, and the lay shaft has come out. So it actually doesn't look like it's got that much wear on it too. Might be able to just reuse that. All right, so the lay gear is now down. Now let's see if we can, oh wow, look at these metal shavings and bits that have come out. Holy cow. Okay, now let's see if we can try to walk this bearing out. So there's a couple of things that I've seen other folks do. The manual actual says to use the drift like I was trying to do last night. That didn't get me anywhere, as you all saw. And so what I saw the guy from Midwest Motoring do is he was using flathead screwdrivers to kind of try to walk it out. And so that's what we're going to try here. We're going to see if we can just use a couple of flatheads to kind of just walk it on out and just pry it out, which seems way less destructive than what we were trying to do before. In fact, actually, I'm going to set this in the vise so that way I got a better angle. So stand by. All right. Let's see if we can try to walk this out at all. Oh, that was easy. Holy cow. All right. Cool. That worked out really well. It was way easier than trying to knock it out with the drift. I don't know why the manual would ever say that, so don't try to drift it out. Holy cow, that was way easier than it should have been. And the ball bearings keep on dropping. Look at that. All those little bearings just kind of fell out. All right. All right, so again, following the instruction manual. I don't know how well this is going to go, but it says that using a rawhide hammer, I should be able to just tap on this to push the main gear out in the back. That main bearing. I don't know how much I like tapping that. I mean, that's what the guide says, but I'm looking at this rear bearing here. Okay, and the rear bearing does stick out a little bit. I wonder if I can maybe just use the screwdrivers like I did before to kind of move that out. So I'm going to try to do that instead first, because I don't really want to tap this, because I don't know, something about tapping this just does not feel right with me. So let me try the screwdriver trick first, and if that doesn't work, then we'll go with the tapping method, but let's see what this does.
Many minutes later.
All right, so we're putting this away. I had to stop for a minute and look at the video from Midwest Motoring. He really gives a good example of how to pull this apart. And so what I'm going to do is follow his advice. The manual says to use a rawhide hammer and just hammer this out. Well, you can't do that unless you remove the circlip here on the back, and you should also remove the oil pump drive, which is right here, for the overdrive itself. So what he recommends, though, to do is to go ahead and remove as much as you can now. So we're going to do that. By the way, you can see the detent springs are completely gone, as well as the ball bearings. Those are the little ball bearings I was supposed to find inside. So yeah, that's where they're supposed to go. So what we're going to do now, we're going to flip this guy up. And we're going to try to go ahead and remove these circlips here. So I got this little circlip for the oil drive pump. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Inside of here, there's also a woodruff key. So we need to make sure we don't lose that. There we go. Come on, buddy. Hey, walk it up. All right. Okay. Got that off. And we got to make sure we do not lose that woodruff key right here. So we're going to put that off to the side. Okay, now another circlip. Alright, let's get this circlip off. That caused the entire shaft to drop, but that's alright. Now let's just see if we can kind of walk this bearing up a little bit. There we go. So now I'm going to lay this back. We have a synchro that came out, which is fine. So now, in theory, this gear cluster is okay to come out. There we go. me just pull this up. All right, so here is the leg gear. In the leg gear, you've got this washer that holds it in place. There should also be one in the rear, which there is. Nice, and you can see that the wooden dowel that I got did a good job. So now I'm going to remove the reverse gear. There's a peg bolt that I have to undo, which I already loosened right here. Supposedly this can just come out, but I don't see that with the lever being in there. It doesn't make much sense because the lever is going to be in the way. There we go. Okay. Okay. There's the case. Or shall I say, what's left of the case. Let me go ahead and get this cleaned up a little bit and we will inspect it some. All right. So welcome to the transmission little workstation I got set up here. Got a cardboard box, got some shop towels laid down. So let's just kind of start inspecting everything. So this is the reverse gear and the peg screw. Peg screw is fine. Looking at the reverse gear, everything seems to be just fine. I don't see any kind of damage to the gears at all. The gears all look really good. I was worried about that. I was being possibly part of the cause of some of the damage. Based on some of the comments left by others, but I don't see any damage here. I mean, this thing looks fantastic. The sleeve on the inside is great, so nothing to worry about there. In terms of the shaft that it rides on, again, nice and clean, absolutely no damage, no wear on this whatsoever. It is really good and smooth. So we're going to set that off to the side. We also have the bushing that goes to it, and again, perfect. Looks like it's in great shape. So we know that reverse is good. Now, in terms of the input shaft. So the input shaft does appear to be good. Of course, need to replace the bearing. But all the teeth on this look pretty decent as well. So very happy with that. I don't see any kind of damage that I need to do or worry about. Inside of here, again, all nice and clean. There's no wear on the inside of this. I was worried that there might be, but there really isn't. There's just some debris in there that I'll have to just get a really good clean out on, and we should be good. My other concern was just that how rough this looks. So I might just try to sand this a little bit just to kind of clean it up, get some of that rust off of there, but overall it's not going to affect the functionality of it. So we have that. We know we need a new bearing, obviously, for that. Let's talk about the lay gear. So before, I already showed you what the lay shaft looked like. The lay shaft is like perfect. The lay gear, though, does have some issues. So I took the dowel out and I just put the lay gear shaft in because honestly, it's a little bit better, and I was worried about falling out and losing needle bearings and all that. We'll replace needle bearings as it is, but I wanted to take a look at the gears and see what kind of condition the gears are in. And the gears are in good shape. However, there is that one tooth right here. They got really mangled up at some point. And so I've seen some videos from Elon where he actually ground out a tooth or part of a tooth that had broken. And I'm going to send a picture of this over to him and get his opinion on it, because I'm really curious to see what he thinks. Because unfortunately, you can't buy these anymore, and so I'd have to try to source one. And if it's just this one, and there's a little bit of a chip here on another, maybe I can get away with just cleaning that up a little bit. But we'll see what Elon has to say. All right, so now on to the main shaft. So I'm gonna start out here with this needle bearing cage. Everything looks good on it. Just give that a little wipe down. Okay. First synchro. Well, this is the synchro for 4th gear, actually. I think we'll probably replace all the synchros just for good measure, but I mean, they don't look too bad. All right, so we have the selector, and this is what the ball bearings that are missing ride in, and this is what allows you to choose between 3rd and 4th. And again, close inspection, just trying to see it as best as possible. I don't see a lot of uneven wear. There's this ridge here, and I'm not sure if that ridge is supposed to be there or not. So I'm going to have to go ahead and take a look at some reference photos. Maybe one of y'all could tell me if that's actually supposed to be there or not. But, I mean, overall, it doesn't look too bad. And I'll tell you, too, if you have done this before and you've seen wear on these that I'm discounting or saying is not important, or something that I've completely missed altogether, please say something in the comments, because honestly, I don't want to do this more than twice. More than once, actually. So this is the carrier, I want to say. And this is where those detent springs are supposed to go. And obviously they're not there, so we know we need new detent springs. That's without a doubt. And I'm looking just for wear on the teeth, and so far I'm not really seeing anything. Okay, so next we have another synchro. This is going to be the 3rd gear synchro. There's a bit of pitting on it, and there's a little chip there. So yeah, we'll definitely just replace this synchro without a question, but looks like the next bit is held in with a circlip. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop here for the moment, and then I'll get that circlip removed, and we will continue with our inspection.
The following day.
All right, so we're gonna hold off on this for a moment. I wanna talk about this, the leg gear. So last night I went ahead and messaged Elon and get his thoughts on this, and he said that, you know, this damage here is pretty catastrophic to the leg gear, and he might actually have a replacement. All right, so let's go ahead and pick back up. So this circlip is probably one of the most frustrating pieces on this transmission that I've had to take apart. It was a nightmare, and the fun part is that I have to put it back on after I dismantle this to be able to check end float. But for the time being, we're gonna go ahead and take this off. And we're going to try very hard to not lose it or have it go flying. So there's that circlip. Now we're going to go ahead and remove 3rd gear. And I'm going to just lay this down here. All right, so here we have thrust washers. We're just going to check the inside bush here. We will measure this in just a few minutes, but that's the inside bushing. And then thrust washer, but we're checking the gears. I mean, all of these gears look pretty good. I do not see any damage on these gears at all to be concerned with. So now we're going to move on to next one. This should be 2nd gear. Synchro ring. just see here. See, that synchro ring, that grabs real good. But again, I think we're probably still going to replace them for insurance purposes. It's cheap insurance. But the gear itself, I mean, there's no damaged teeth. Everything looks pretty decent on that. Okay, so now we have the synchro housing. And in here, you're going to have those detent springs and detent balls. We're going to just leave that for the time being because I don't want them to go flying everywhere. We now have our synchro for first gear. And we actually have first gear, which is not going to come off going the opposite direction. We put the synchro on. Actually, that synchro grabs. I mean, that's probably pretty decent. I don't know. All right. And then, of course, over here we have our half washers. And these come off here. Let me wipe down this main shaft. We'll take a good close look at it. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to reassemble some of this to go ahead and check end float. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to rebuild this so that way we can actually test end float on the bushes. So we're going to go ahead and start by just putting all these components back on minus the gears. So we don't need the gears. Okay. And then we got to get the circlip back on.
2 very boring minutes later.
All right, so we need to check the end float here. And so we're going to go for 4/1000ths. See that fits. All right. We want to be between 4 and 10. So we're going to go and we're going to try with 5 now. Five fits, but it's getting pretty tight, so that's actually good. Let's try it with 6. Okay. 6 does not fit. So that tells me that these bushes are good. We should be just fine. And now, for the fun part of getting that circlip back off. We'll do that in a little bit, and there'll be a lot of cursing, but we're not going to put it on video. So we'll check in with you in a few minutes. All right, so it's been a few days since I went ahead and filmed that last bit. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the things that I've been working on. All right, so first of all, I went ahead and I really did a good thorough cleaning on the case for the actual gearbox itself. And I went ahead and I gave it a coat of some good high temp engine enamel. I actually gave it 2 coats, so it's got a nice finish on it. Looks pretty decent. I went ahead and I also chased some of the main threads on this guy for the bolts and whatnot. So this is pretty much ready for reassembly. One of the other things that I did is I went ahead and pulled this guy off of the other transmission. So I did a swap and I just went ahead and put the old bell housing on the transmission over there. And I went ahead and got this guy pulled out. And I've been cleaning it up a little bit as I go. There was some black paint on the top here. Just got a little more elbow grease to get that off. And hit the inside with some brake clean just to kind of clean it up a little bit. You're not going to see it, obviously, but I want it to at least be somewhat decent and free of some of that nasty, nasty gunk that was in there. Starting to take apart some of the adapter plate stuff for the overdrive, and went ahead and did some evaluating on this guy here for my throwout bushing, or throwout bearing rather. And I'm gonna have to order a bunch of new parts for the bushings because it was a little bit wobbly, at least a little more wobbly than I wanted. So got to add that stuff to my shopping list. Outside of that, I mean, I went ahead and I popped the bearing off of the input shaft over here. So got that off. That's ready and waiting for a new bearing. And fingers crossed I'll have some parts in hand come next week. So let's go ahead and get this video wrapped up. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up from here. So definitely got a lot done on this video. And now at this point, it's just a matter of waiting on some parts from Spitbits. And we've got to figure out what we're going to do about that leg gear. But anyways, stay tuned. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Click that bell to get those post notifications. And just remember, when you're working on project cars like this, make sure you read the instructions and don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.